The time now is exactly 45 minutes after the hour of 1 p.m. You're tuned into Midday Talk with Luzuko here on ABET FM. And the song we just listened to is Brighter Day by Kirk Franklin. And I believe it, and I always say that by the end of this year, you'll be singing that song. You'll be like, I never knew that I could be so happy. I never knew that I'd be so relieved, and me saying thank you to God, but that's going to be your story. It is a promise from me to you. You can do us a favor by going to like and share our page on Facebook. It is ABET FM. As I said, that today we are having our interview like a little later on the show, and the time is now. I am thrilled and I'm excited, and I can't wait to dive in this conversation. We are talking to someone who has worked over 30 years. She has been dedicated in education and strong proponent for emotional wellness. Her career has spanned teaching, which includes high school, remedial, tertiary, and ABET, emotional wellness, counseling, and program facilitation, and academic leadership in the tertiary environment. She has been honored with awards for her contribution to community development and emotional wellness programs. She sits on the board of an emotional wellness organization whose key focus is suicide prevention and awareness programs for gender-based violence prevention. Her passion for community development and people empowerment was nurtured by her mother as a core value in their family. This has become her life's purpose. Who are we chatting with this afternoon at ABET FM? We are chatting to Samantha Fredericks. If you have a question for her, or you have a comment that you'd like to give a shout out, send it through on our WhatsApp number. That is 067 9944 546 067 9944 546. I'm sure she'll be thrilled to answer all your questions. Samantha, welcome on ABET FM.
Good afternoon, Luzuko. Thank you very much. It's a privilege and pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Awesome. As I'm reading your stuff and everything that you're doing, I'm thinking, because you are big on emotional wellness and you want people to be healthy emotionally, the right state of mind all the time, don't you get the pressure that every day and all the time you must be on point?
Absolutely.
People think that you are this robot, that your emotions are intact all the time.
Absolutely. And often the students and my staff will ask me about that. And I'll be amazed and I'll say, really? Is that how I come across? Because that's not what's happening inside. That is just not what's happening inside.
Definitely.
But it's very interesting that I think that over the years, as you see, and this is the wonderful thing about getting older, you realize that it's the same situation that plays itself out over and over again, just in different forms, with slightly different people, in slightly different situations. And as soon as you hear yourself say, either aloud or in your head, oh my goodness, why is this happening again?
Again, yes.
Then you go, okay, so if it happened again, what did I do the last time? How did I handle that? And then you can go from there. And you build up your own set of resources and tools and ways of handling things positively, because you know what didn't work for you before.
Previously. As they say, people say that psychologists, they need their own
Yes. You sit with yourself and you look at yourself, what works and what doesn't work and why it doesn't work. And when that happened, and you can track back years right through to when you were in primary school and somebody said something nasty, or you felt bullied, or you had a bad dream that you're standing naked in the assembly line, or any of those things.
Those weird,
you can
traumatizing.
I remember when.
Yes. Awesome. You mentioned that everything that you're doing is because of the upbringing of your mother.
Yes.
Please take us through that. What is she teaching you? What are you watching her do that sort of builds you up? Because sometimes a lot of things that we learn from our parents, even now, we were sending condolences to someone who lost a father. And I'm thinking in my head, now you're going to become more of your father.
Yes.
The things that you were watching him do all these years are going to come alive now. So what I want to find out is, what were you watching from your mother that is sort of becoming you? And you're like, this is not me.
Mm.
This is
Oh, please. I did say that many times. I am not my mother. You know, when we were growing up, as I can tell you, as far back as, and it is as clear as the day that it happened. I was in standard 2 at that time. They now call it grade 4. And my teacher was angry with homework that I had done. And she said to me, "You are such an embarrassment to your mother. Your mother would never do something like this." And I was 10 years old. And my mother sat on the PTA of the school. And my mother was always involved in everything. A lovely, bubbly, vivacious personality, helping out wherever she could. Everybody just loved her. And as a result, whatever she was involved in, she pulled her children into. I have 2 younger brothers. I'm the eldest of 3 children. And my poor dad just went along with everything.
Yes.
And that happened through primary school, into high school, and then in high school you get involved with the youth and the church and community programs that are taking place. And it just evolves from there, because then you go to varsity and you find out what's happening at varsity and you get involved with those things. And whatever direction your career path takes you on, you find yourself looking for those things to naturally get involved in and contribute towards. And that was a key thing with us. She would always say to us, "You children are so lucky to have what you have. There are so many other kids who don't have that. Don't take it for granted. Go and help out. Go and help out." And even though we are all spread literally around the country and around the world, because one of my brothers is overseas and the other one is in Johannesburg, she will phone us and she will say, "There's a project happening in her particular community. Do we want to get involved?" But how are we going to get involved? We're not there.
Yes.
Send the money. Your money will help us.
Your money will talk.
Your money will help us. But she gets my dad involved in things as well, with him being retired. Because she will say, "Mrs. So-and-so up the road needs to go and get her pension. Mrs. So-and-so up the road needs to go to the doctor." And my dad's just got to get into his car and go and help out wherever he can, because it's a constant reminder to us that we are very blessed.
Yeah, and you need to always offer a hand. You are you're a leader, if whether you like it or not, because of what you do. You don't have a choice. You are a leader, and I believe you've taken that from her as well. But what I want to know is, what does it take to be a firm but also loving leader?
I can tell you that it's very difficult. I can tell you that I've had to learn how to balance the two, because I've been reared to be a servant leader, and that it's not about the accolades. It's wonderful if you are recognized. I remember many years ago being so upset because I had helped a group of students that were really struggling. And once they had passed and they were moving on, that was it. And they just moved on. And I remember having a conversation with my mom and saying, "Do you know that not one of those children came back to say thank you?" And she looked at me and she said, "Really? You are expecting thanks?" She said to me, "Jesus healed the lepers. Did they come back and say thank you to you? Who are you? You are not Jesus." And that has what has stuck with me all the years, no matter what I get involved with, whether I'm assisting on a suicide watch, where a young person has been identified as suicidal and the family is anxious and everybody has got a certain time frame that they've got to sit with that individual, whether I'm working with a student, whatever it is, I've got to know that whatever I'm doing it because I enjoy it, because I want to be there, and that I'm not to expect a thank you. If there is a thank you, then that's great. And when people do say thank you, then I don't know how to receive it. I'm like, really? For that? But anybody would have done that to help you. I'm very, very uncomfortable with that. It's much easier now to be able to help people and allow them to walk away.
Because you're like, anyways, don't
Yeah,
come back.
it's very
So now
uncomfortable.
your breaks like, don't come back to say thank you. It's awkward.
He knows.
Awesome. Samantha, with everything that you're doing, which one comes first? Were you a teacher first and then wellness emotional wellness, can you structure it for me? Because I want to ask,
Mm.
which one helps or informs the other that you are doing in everything?
Do you know that it's the craziest thing, because you don't always see emotional wellness, and people don't always know what that is. And they think that it's an airy-fairy thing, or they think that this is something that you've got to go to a psychologist for to be diagnosed. So I think the easier and more acceptable thing in society is to say that I was a teacher first. And as you work with people, you start saying, why does this child understand immediately and this child doesn't? And why does this child sit in front of the class and this one chooses to sit right at the back even though there are seats in the front? And why is this person distracted? And as you are teaching and you see people's behavior, because that's all that we see, how people are behaving. I can't believe he's doing this. How can he ignore me? Teachers will often say, put your pencil down and look at me.
Yes.
Don't write,
Right.
don't look out of the window, all eyes on me. And that was always just a thing that you get taught when you are learning to be a teacher, that children can only concentrate if they are looking at you. And if they are doing anything else, it's a problematic behavior. So initially, that's what I thought it was. Until I started having conversations either with the children or with their parents, whoever I could access. And then you hear, this child didn't sleep at home last night because parents were fighting, and the child literally had to sneak out of the window and go to a neighbor or to a grandparent. The child's living in an area where there are gangsters and there was shooting in the evenings, and this child was petrified, but I'm demanding homework. There may be other issues happening. A girl may be pregnant and petrified to tell anybody else what is happening. And so I chose from my early 20s to work in a community that was not similar to mine, because I needed to learn about other people. I was raised in a very conservative community and a very conservative home. The community that I lived in, you didn't have people that were divorced. I didn't know about divorce in the family. The community didn't, if a child came from a single parent home, people didn't talk about that.
It, yes.
You know, there were all
was
these
this
little
perfect
things.
picture.
Yes, all the time. And then all of a sudden, I'm studying teaching, and I get the opportunity to teach in communities that are different to mine, that I wouldn't normally have been allowed to even go into or befriend people from those communities. And it's the craziest thing when you say not allowed to, because who allows? Because when you speak to my parents say, but you didn't ask.
Yeah.
You know?
You concluded that
Absolutely.
that can never be me.
Absolutely. And as you get to know people, in my first year of teaching, I was 21, just before my 22nd birthday. And because I'm tiny in stature, and I looked young as well, I needed to look very strict. So I went into school, and my hair was very long, and I had it in a bun, and I was wearing my spectacles and high heel shoes and all sorts of things to make me look older. And one of the things that I had to teach was life orientation. Oh, that's not a problem. I'll read the textbook and I'll just go in and teach. And I had to teach about contraceptives. And I had never been on a contraceptive. And I go in and I'm teaching this class. It used to be called Standard 9 and 10. It's now grade 11 and 12. And I'm talking to all these kids, and they are just looking at me and looking at each other and shaking their heads. And one brave girl puts up her hand and says to me, ma'am, are you married? And I say, no. And she says, do you have any children? And I say, no. Are you on a contraceptive? And I'm like, oh my word. Who asks questions like that?
Who is this
And
child?
I said, why? And she said, do you know that the majority of us in the class have at least one child? So the contraceptive story, you tell that to the grade 8s.
It doesn't apply.
It does not apply to us. And I did not know what to do. And I ran down to the principal and I said to the principal, what am I going to do? all the things that I need to teach these students already have life skills that they could teach me. So I then had to realize that when I go in, I'm not the fountain of knowledge. I'm not standing there and just pouring information into students, assuming that they know nothing. I now had to learn at 21, 22 to go in very differently and say, guys, this is what we are talking about today. Any of you know anything about this?
You're also receiving from them.
I had no choice. And in that way, I grew up emotionally because I was fine academically, but emotionally, I was not on the same level as them.
Yes.
And from that very early experience, I had to learn that, and this is when I first learned about emotional wellness, IQ, that people's IQ and EQ do not necessarily balance out. And as I got to travel around the country and I moved out of high school teaching to teaching adults, not just adult education, but in MBA programs and things like that, you see the most amazing, intelligent people, but emotionally, they're like 2-year-olds. They can throw tantrums, they can do all sorts of things. Again, I didn't quite know at the time how to deal with it. So you think, if they're coming at me, I'm going to come at them. Nobody's going to bully me. And then you have children and you realize, oh, this is an easy thing to do. You can ignore that person. You can put them in the naughty corner and let them think about what they have done. You can do all sorts of things. And I often tell my students, I have this uncanny ability to ignore anybody that's throwing a tantrum. And I learned that when my children were very little. Once my daughter threw a tantrum. She was 2. We went to Checkers. She lay on the floor because she wanted a doll and I didn't want to buy it for her. And she lay on the floor and her arms and her legs were just going up and down. And she was screaming. I just stepped right over her and I continued shopping. And I went down the next aisle and a lady came running behind me to say, oh my goodness, you've left your child in the other aisle. I said, she knows exactly where I am. She will come to me when she's ready, and she's never done it again. And then I remembered that when my daughter became a teenager. And so when my daughter was 13, I was listening to all the other parents at the school saying, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing. These children roll their eyes and they slam the door and they're so rude. I thought, oh no, not on my watch, not in my house. So I called my children and I had, and my one son was 10 at the time. And I sat them all down and I said to them, I'm telling you this once, we're not going to do this again. Each of you get one opportunity to roll your eyes, to stamp your feet, and to bang your bedroom door. You've got to do that so that you've got a story to tell your friends and a story to tell your grandchildren because you're only going to get an opportunity to do it once. The second time you bang that door, do you see this tool? That door will come off its hinges, it will go into the garage, and the next time that the door goes back on the door frame is when you leave.
Leave the house.
When you leave the house, you will never experience privacy again in your life because there will be no door to bang. No door to bang. And I've never had to have that conversation
Ever
again. I said it once. And I still say this to them all the time. Are you guys not going to bang the door? You still have your one chance. You still have your one chance. It doesn't happen. And I say the same thing to staff when I'm recruiting them. I say to them, you get 3 lifelines. You get one opportunity to be rude and disrespectful to me because maybe that's just who you are and it's important that I see that. I won't be offended. I won't be offended. I will just take note that this is how you behave.
This is who...
You get one opportunity to embarrass me in a meeting. And you get one opportunity to do something else that I've never thought of or experienced before.
That's never written in the book.
And when you do that, you know that you've got to go. because it means that you have no respect for me. So we're going to struggle to work together, and then I can't develop you. I can't empower you. I can't equip you for bigger and better things because you are not interested in learning from me. And when you don't like someone, you don't want to learn from them because you don't think that they add any value.
Anything to offer to you.
Absolutely.
It seems like honesty is your thing, and it helps you for, like in most situations. And also, what I'm interested as you are talking and explaining these things to us, it seems like you give off a lot of yourself in these people that you meet every day, and that sometimes can be draining. You know, when you go to school, you teach these people, so you are offloading, and then you meet someone who's suicidal, and then you try and understand what they're going through, what's happening in their family, and then you need to take from your experiences and all that you've learned, you offload.
Yes.
But then you also need a well to drink from.
Yes.
Where is that well for you?
Oh, how do I say this without you thinking that I need counseling? Okay. So it's very true what you say, because a lot of people say that to me. My parents say that to me. My husband says that to me. My staff say that to me. Does it sound crazy to say that I think that this is just what I was born to do, and this is my purpose? Because I don't get tired, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah.
If people need help, I don't know where this comes from, but I'm able to help. If people need to be listened to, as much as I love to talk,
Yes.
I like to listen. Can I tell you a crazy thing? My name means good listener.
Okay.
It's the female version of Samuel in the Bible.
All right.
All right? So when I was little, I used to talk even more than I talk now. And my mother used to say to me, your name should have said good listener, good talker, rather than good listener. And I have had to grow into my name. And I've had to learn to listen. And I've had to learn to hear behind the words, in terms of what people are not saying and what their hearts are saying rather than what their words are saying. So when you say to me, where do you get the energy? It's when I'm quiet and I'm listening to what you have to say. And the young people in particular who are suicidal, who are teenagers, people between the ages of 16 and 30 in particular, who feel that this is the only way out. Again, one of the wonderful things about getting older is that you are able to say to them, this too shall pass. This is just part of your experience. Think about what you can learn from it. This is not the end. Things do get better. This is just part of something that you need to learn, because you are going to need to help somebody else down the line. And whatever it is that you are going through, you'll be able to say to that person, you know what, I was also there.
I know what you're going through.
I know what you're going through. It does get better. Don't end it now. Don't end it now. There's too many fantastic things ahead of you. Get through this, learn from this, and move on to the next thing. And there will be something else that you will go through. It doesn't mean that because you got through this, life is going to be perfect. There will always be something. But as soon as there is that pothole in the road, that big mountain that you've got to climb, instead of just curling up into a ball and thinking that you can't do it, get excited about it, because there's something there that's going to help you to grow, something that you're going to learn, something that's going to make you stronger and almost arrogant, because you've got through it, you know exactly how to handle it, and you can move on to the next thing.
Yeah. And also people, I'm sure we always expect people like you to have answers for everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
Are there some situations where you're like, I don't have an answer for this?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, because as I'm already in my early 50s, and it is the hardest thing to look at a young person, somebody that is 14, 15 years old, and just wonder how they can live in the circumstances that they can live in, because I don't know if I would be able to live in them. With all the knowledge that I have, with all the life experience that I have, I don't know if I would have the resilience to cope with and get through on a daily basis with what that child's got to get through, and still get up in the morning, put a uniform on, and go to school. And that is where the academics and the emotional wellness then balance out. Because if I can understand why you are not coming to school, why you are quiet in class, why you haven't attended lectures for a couple of weeks when you're a good student, then I know how to help you. I have had situations where we're supposed to be writing exams, and I know that a really good student should be in that class, and the student is not there. And my phone will ring, and I'll have this person screaming in my ear, ma'am, I'm so sorry that I can't come in to write. I'm having my baby. My mother will bring the baby's birth certificate. Can I write this up? Oh my goodness, why is this child telling me this? But it's because they know that they can trust me with that information, because many years ago when I was a teacher at a school, if a girl was pregnant, they weren't allowed to complete their education. And that always upset me, because I thought, this girl is going to be a mother. How is she going to feed her child? How is she going to look after her child? When I traveled to the UK, I saw that the UK has a program that if you are over the age of 16, and this was many years ago, when you're over the age of 16, if you have a baby and you still want to continue your education, the government will give you a semi-furnished flat and give you a bursary to go to school so that you can finish your education, and enough money to put your child into a nursery school, into daycare, so that you don't need to worry about that. Yeah. Okay. And I often wished that we would have something like that in South Africa. And then a few years ago, friends of ours went over to Australia. And when they got to Australia, their daughter was doing her final year of high school. And she didn't tell them that she was pregnant when she left. And when they got to Australia, she then disclosed that she was pregnant. She had her baby, and they were able to find her a school where she was able to take baby to school. And there was an area of the school where it was a nursery school for the babies, and you could then go during your lunch break to see your baby, feed your baby, whatever needed to be done. And they phoned me the one day, very upset and beside themselves. They didn't know what to do, because their daughter had been reported by one of the teachers as having abused her child. I said, what does that mean? Because this is not the family that you come from. And when she was changing baby's nappy, there were blue marks on the baby's bum and on the baby's back. And so she was reported to the social workers. And so the social workers went home, and they said that they wanted to see the child, and they interviewed the parents, and the parents said, this child doesn't get a hiding, they don't know what it is. And it was very interesting for me that they did this investigation, and what they discovered was that children, particularly those born in South Africa, because of the pigmentation of their skin and of their body, they for some reason are born with these blue marks
on them,
which they had not seen with the other babies. And when they went to the doctor and baby was examined, it was just a pigment defect, and that baby was going to grow out of it. But just the fact that this young girl could have the opportunity to complete her schooling, understand the importance of being a mother, understand the importance of looking after your baby, because things can be misinterpreted. Her daughter is now in high school, and one of the loveliest young women that you could ever meet.
Wow.
And you think, it's not always a bad thing. Our hearts are broken when a young girl falls pregnant in high school or early college or varsity. But if they have the support of parents, and they have the support of the people at the institution at what they are, at which they are studying, baby can grow up to be lovely and healthy. The young lady can go on to have a fantastic qualification and an awesome career. And there's more to life than just punishing people all the time.
It's true. Trying to prove a point.
Yes.
Because sometimes I feel like people just want to prove a point that I'm going to show you. And it's really sad. Looking at your career and what you've accomplished and what you've done throughout the years, is there any highlight that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, there's always highlights. Every year it is something different. It depends on what is happening that year. I want to share something of the 2020 year, for example. I just want to applaud not only my students, but every young person at a tertiary institution, public or private, college or private, whether they're at a college, whether they're at a university, whether they are studying from home. The fact that they've learned how to work online, they've learned to time manage, they've submitted their assignments, they've written tests in unusual circumstances, and they have passed. I just take my hat off to them. I truly applaud the fact that they didn't give up. That they didn't throw in the towel, make an excuse, oh, my parents are wasting their money. What are they actually paying for? There isn't somebody standing in front of me teaching me, because they've had to dig deep. They've had to learn life skills that they didn't know they were capable of doing. If COVID wasn't around, they possibly wouldn't have discovered that they're capable of organizing themselves, leading themselves, not policing themselves, but giving themselves timelines and time frames, and then rewarding themselves for the good work. For some people, there would have been bumps in the road. For some people, they would have just gone through it very, very smoothly. For others, they were dragged kicking and screaming with parents saying, you will not give up and you will not waste my money. And they got to the finish line. And that is what is so important, that they got to the finish line, and they're going to have the most incredible stories. 10 years down the line, when they are interviewing for a managerial position, a supervisory position, and people look at their CVs and go, wow, you did your final year in 2020. How did you do that? Tell us about your resilience. What equipped you? What empowered you? Who supported you through that process? What made you not give up? They are going to have completely different interviews and different stories to tell that's going to impress the recruitment officers. The panel. The questions are going to be different. It's not your traditional, so what are you going to do in 3 years' time? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Because there is so much that they've learned that literally the world is their oyster. And there are a lot of young people that have learned to do courses online because they've become more confident with the online teaching of their local college and university, that they're now stepping out and going, oh, well, I can do a course that's in the States and in the UK and in Australia, and I don't need to leave the security of my family home. I don't even need to leave the province.
I can work.
I can work and I can study. I have learned how to go online in the evenings. For example, we record all our classes. So I say to the students, guys, this is DSTV. This is catch-up. If you can't get to the lecture on the day at the time because you are working, and that's fine because you need to work in order to get the money to pay your fees. So we understand this. Now, in the past, you would have had to come in, you would have had to tell a story, make up a story, tell lies, hand in your assignment late, hand it in 3 days later, and you're losing marks. Now you don't need to do that. You know, when you get home in the evening, have your supper, listen to, and sometimes it's a boring person, we've got to admit to that.
Yeah.
It's a voice that you don't particularly agree with, enjoy. You can't hear pronunciations clearly, but the good thing is that you can listen to it over and over again. You don't need to borrow your friend's notes and keep your fingers crossed that they actually took good notes in a lecture. And 2 or 3 weeks down the line, when you're doing a big test or you've got an assignment that was about lecture 1, you can go back and listen to the exact lecture word for word.
True.
Without missing out on anything or going, the lecturer said something about, do you remember what it is? I know it was so good, but I can't remember it and I didn't write it down. So there's lots of pros. And I'm hoping and I'm trusting that the young people who learned these skills don't take it for granted, and neither do they forget it if we ever go back to face-to-face lectures again.
That's so true, and it's really important, because this is the thing about change. Change is difficult. It's never nice for anyone.
Never.
So for you, as you're talking about, that's true. Like, we managed to study, we managed to submit our assignments, and it's something worth celebrating.
Absolutely.
And being proud of. So that is very true. This is supposed to be a fun question, but it won't be. What's the one thing that you wish everyone could take from you, from your life, and learn from you?
Oh my goodness. I don't know what they would take from my life. What I would like them to be aware of is that it's a lot of admin to be two different people. It's a lot of admin to be one person at home and one person in the workplace. If your personality is just consistent, you don't need to hide your Facebook page, your WhatsApp status. You don't need to hide any of those things, because it is what it is. This is who you are. And that is why I say to the students, to the staff, to my children, I have 11 godchildren, not grandchildren, godchildren. The eldest is 33 and the youngest is 13. And I say to them all the time, don't lie, because it is difficult to remember a lie. Also, if you've made a mistake, own it. And you can rather apologize rather than try to talk it away or blame somebody else for it. Just get on with it. And I say that to the staff when they come in. I say to them, you're going to work with me. You may not always like what I say, what I do, what I ask you to do, or the time frames that I give you. And that is okay. I don't take it personally. What I need you to know is that I am not here to punish you. I am here to develop you. And when you are ready to leave, don't lie, don't make up stories, don't go home on a Friday afternoon and send me a resignation letter to say that you won't be in on Monday. Come in and let me know, because I want to wish you well. I want to give you a good reference. I want to keep the door open so that if ever life goes full circle and I need to come to you for help, or you need to come back to me for whatever reason,
Is it true?
then we are still available to each other. Because if you leave on a bad note, it's very difficult to try to slither and sneak back in and pretend to like the person and
be laughing at things that are...
Rather tell me what is happening. I may not like it, and that's okay not to like it, but at least you're being honest.
That's true. That's very important. Thank you so much, Samantha. You do so much work, and you do a lot. I wish I had a lot of money. I was going to take you for holiday.
And I would find something to do on that holiday.
2 days opening your PC and doing work again. But I wish you well. Thank you so much for your time. It has been great. I learned so much, and I believe that the guys who are listening, those who are watching on Facebook, they are taking notes. They are writing down. They can relate. They're like, okay, I resonate with what she's saying. It is so true and it's so important. Even the last point that you just made, that it's so much admin to be dual, to live double standards. I'm like, okay, preach. Samantha, preach. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for taking time to come and speak with us here on Agape FM.
Thank you for the opportunity. This has been wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you as well for listening to us. This is Midday Talk with Luzuko here on Agape